Brought to you by the Dark Lord himself, Queasy Ali. They told you it was holy history. I'm telling you it was stagecraft. The story you learned in Sunday school isn't incomplete, it's manufactured. What you're about to hear isn't blasphemy, it's the audit. For 2,000 years, layer after layer of doctrine and devotion wrapped a fragile core of contradictions, mistranslations, political edits, and retrofitted prophecy. Pull one thread and the tapestry shakes. Pull enough and you discover it isn't a tapestry at all. It's a costume. We begin where they said it began, a Bethlehem night choreographed around a Roman census. Only there's no record, not one, of a census that forced millions to abandon their homes and travel to ancestral towns. Rome counted you where you lived, where you worked, where you owned property, where the tax collector could find you tomorrow. The empire ran on paperwork, not pilgrimages. Why invent an impossible census? Because the writers needed a Nazareth family to produce a Bethlehem birth to match an ancient expectation. That's not history, that's plot. Then the genealogies, royal paper trails stitched to David like gold thread. Matthew runs it through Solomon. Luke runs it through Nathan. Generation after generation, the names diverge. And both trace Joseph, not Mary, which collapses the whole device if the birth is virgin. You cannot claim a divine conception and then validate it with your stepfather's bloodline. Pick a lane. The text picked both. Now the fulcrum, the virgin birth itself. You've been told Isaiah promised it. The Hebrew word there is almah, it means a young woman of marriageable age, not a virgin. If Isaiah had intended to describe an untouched virgin, he would have used the word Bethulah, which is the Hebrew term that clearly means that. But centuries later, when Jewish scholars translated the Hebrew Bible into Greek, the version known as the Septuagint, they rendered almah as Parthenos. And Parthenos can mean virgin, but it doesn't have to. It's a flexible term, used elsewhere in Greek literature simply for young woman. That small linguistic slippage, one translator's choice of a word with two meanings, lit the fuse that changed religious history. Early Christian writers, desperate to prove Jesus fulfilled Hebrew prophecy, seized on that single Greek word like a golden ticket. What was once a poetic verse about a young woman giving birth became a biological miracle, a supernatural conception. A simple passage meant to inspire hope for deliverance was re-engineered into proof of divine origin. The virgin birth wasn't a revelation from heaven, it was a translation error from a human scribe, later weaponized into dogma. And from that mistranslation grew an entire theology that billions would accept without ever knowing that the miracle was born not in Bethlehem, but in a dictionary. Pull back from the manger and the quiet gets louder. For a man who supposedly fed thousands, healed crowds, angered authorities, and shook Jerusalem, the first century record is a desert. In an era when Rome recorded every uprising, Jewish historians catalogued every prophet, and Greek writers documented every rumor, the record on Jesus is dead silent. Josephus, the meticulous Jewish chronicler of the age, gives John the Baptist an entire profile, yet when it comes to Jesus, the pages go blank. Except, that is, for one suspicious paragraph glowing with praise that sounds nothing like Josephus. Scholars noticed it centuries ago, the style's wrong, the theology's foreign, the tone breaks his flow. It's not evidence of Jesus. It's evidence of a forgery, so the letters step in. Paul writes early. Paul writes often. And Paul never met the man he built the theology around. He offers visions, not interviews, creeds, not coordinates. He drops the 500 witnesses line with 0 names, 0 dates, 0 locations, and somehow the later Gospels, hungry for any corroboration, never use this silver bullet. Imagine claiming an Oscar and forgetting to list the ceremony. The math never adds up unless the number was smoke meant to look like fire. Then the crescendo that should synchronize perfectly if any moment would, the crucifixion and resurrection. Instead, 4 composers draft 4 incompatible scores. Who discovered the empty tomb? Depends on the book. What were Jesus's last words? Depends on the book. Did he carry his own cross, or did Simon step in? Depends on the book. Mark's earliest ending stops with fear and silence, so scribes graft a new finale later, harmonized to the expanding myth. John writes last and goes largest, layering set pieces and speeches the earlier accounts never knew. That's not memory converging, that's mythology escalating. Anonymous pens wrote these stories decades after the fact, then later hands attached famous names. Mark writes under the shadow of a city already fallen in the year 70, putting prophecy into Jesus's mouth that reads suspiciously like hindsight. Matthew and Luke copy Mark and embroider. John steps beyond biography into cosmic poetry. Different communities, different audiences, different needs, and a single figure stretched to meet them all. That's not eyewitness reporting, That's theological production design. If you want to understand why the story survived, follow the power, not the parchment. Constantine didn't kneel to a cross because a footnote convinced him. He crowned it because an empire needed glue. The Council of Nicaea wasn't a prayer circle, it was a ceasefire summit for warring doctrines. From that moment, orthodoxy became statecraft. Temples were repurposed. Rival texts were buried, burned, or branded as heresy. The canon we now call closed was curated, books chosen because they served unity and authority, not because a thunderclap said so. Alternative voices, Thomas whispering inner wisdom, Mary speaking leadership, were smothered. We only know they lived because a few copies escaped the bonfire. And about the martyrs you were told would rather die than deny, many of the most cinematic deaths arrive in memory long after the bodies would have cooled, written by insiders, not recorded by Rome. Of course some were punished, new movements always clash with old power. But the sweeping legend of endless lions and endless saints? That's emotional architecture. Martyrdom is the ultimate argument from loyalty. Who would die for a lie? History answers, humans die for identities every day. Meanwhile the manuscripts themselves tell on their keepers. We don't have a pristine master file, we have a river delta of copies and corrections, hundreds of thousands of variants. Some are spelling, some are strategy. The famous cast the first stone scene? Absent from the earliest witnesses. The clean, triumphant ending of Mark? A later attachment. Trinitarian clarity sharpen across generations like a blade repeatedly honed. Scribes didn't only transmit. They optimized. Add the soft conquest, the cultural remix dressed as revelation. Winter trees baptized as Christmas. Spring fertility symbols baptized as Easter. Sacred wells renamed for saints. The Mother of God absorbing the wardrobes of older goddesses. This wasn't a gentle conversation among neighbors. It was absorption first, erasure second, and credit stolen last. But the most sophisticated move wasn't textual or political. It was psychological. Step 1, convince a child they are broken by default and deserve infinite punishment. Step 2, offer a single escape route through submission to authority. Step 3, teach them that doubt is not curiosity, it is treason staged by invisible enemies. Package this loop as humility and call the unanswerable mystery. You've just welded the cage and handed the captive the key, then told them turning it would offend the warden. That is how you make people self-police. That is how you turn questions into guilt and evidence into temptation. This is why contradictions didn't sink the ship. You don't have to patch every leak if you can train passengers to fear the lifeboats. You just need enough spectacle, enough suffering, enough slogans to keep the eyes forward and the hands folded. And for centuries, it worked. Cathedrals rose. Libraries fell. Science was told to wait its turn. Authority spoke and called itself truth. But truth is stubborn, and time has an arrow. Myths expand like hot gas, but evidence has gravity. Pull back from the incense and you see the gears, an impossible census invented to place a birth in the right town, two incompatible family trees trying to crown a stepchild, a prophecy stretched by translation into biology, a miracle absent from the earliest tellings, silence where there should be paperwork, a number of witnesses with no faces, 4 endings to one finale, anonymous authors with borrowed names, a canon curated by empire, martyrs remembered more in legend than in ledgers, manuscripts edited toward doctrine, rival gospels smothered, rival cultures strip mined, a psychology that makes obedience feel like virtue and inquiry feel like sin. If all of this is the foundation, what does that say about the house? It says the greatest story ever told was also the most aggressively sold, and the invoices were paid with centuries of minds trained to equate faith with goodness and questions with guilt. It says the point was never to align with reality, it was to align reality with authority. And it says the way out isn't another creed, it's the courage to measure claims by the world we actually live in, not the world someone needs us to imagine. I'm not asking you to trade one altar for another. I'm asking you to step outside the temple and look at the stones in sunlight. Follow the records, not the rhetoric. Let evidence be evidence again. Let doubt be a tool, not a sin. The spell only works if you refuse to read the script margins. You've read them now. You can't unread them. The chains are visible. And once seen, chains invite breaking. So here's the turn. We can keep excusing contradictions as mystery, keep calling edits inspiration, keep baptizing borrowed festivals and burned libraries as God's plan. Or we can choose adulthood. We can build on honesty instead of authority, on inquiry instead of intimidation, on the hard beauty of what is real instead of the soft comfort of what we were told. No thunderclap will anoint that choice. No emperor will convene a council to approve it. It will be yours, and that is exactly why it will be true. You've felt it already, that quiet relief when reality doesn't need your loyalty, only your attention. That is freedom. And it doesn't demand worship. It asks for work, the daily work of thinking, checking, learning, revising, and refusing to call surrender a virtue. If a faith needs censorship to survive, it is telling you what it is. If a story needs your silence to sound like truth, it is telling you what it is. Listen. Because the arrow of time points one way. Myths expand. Lies erode. Entropy eats the costumes until only the fabric of fact remains. That's not cynical, that's hopeful. It means the human project can grow out of its borrowed myths and into its earned understanding. It means we can keep what is humane, compassion, courage, community, and let go of what was weaponized, fear, shame, obedience. It means the next chapter isn't waiting in a scroll. It's waiting in us. The greatest lie ever sold only wins if we keep paying. We don't owe it another dime. Huizi Ali, the man, the myth, the legend. The icon aka the Dark Lord. Hashtag Revolution 2025 Hashtag Chaos Rising 2025 Hashtag Rebellion 2025 Hashtag History Unveiled Hashtag Leasoft Across Hashtag Truth Over Faith